#1 rated pregame, intermission, and postgame show this side of the Mississippi. I'm Russ Joy. That's Anthony SanFilippo. And we are joined tonight by the new Philadelphia Flyers beat writer for the Philadelphia Inquirer, Jackie Spiegel. Welcome to the Press Row Show.
Thanks for having me.
Welcome to Philadelphia, first and foremost, Jackie, because you're not a local.
No, I'm not.
The Inquirer went outside of the Philadelphia market, and we'll just whisper it because you're from a city about 90 miles north.
Don't put her in a bad spot to start, okay?
I think they'll hear the accent quick enough.
She's from Brooklyn. Brooklyn. Jackie, tell us about, look, a lot of people have no idea, like, oh, who's this Jackie Spiegel who's going to be writing for the Flyers? Give us a little bit about your background, especially in hockey. I mean, you've been covering this sport for about 15 years, I think now, right?
I mean, I've grown up watching it my entire life.
Right.
You know, my dad was a season ticket holder for a team I won't mention. But I've been a fan of it for as long as I can remember. And I started covering. I worked at ESPN back in the day. People will know my age when I say this, but I worked on the original NHL Tonight. So, so I've been around the sport. I worked for a couple teams. I love hockey.
That's fantastic.
That's a really important thing, by the way. The last thing she just said. Loves hockey. I think it's important that you love the sport that you cover.
Oh, for sure. For sure. And then you know everything. You know how to break it down.
Yeah.
I've coached, so I know all that kind of stuff.
Wait a second. I want to get into that in just a second.
Yeah.
What?
What the hell are we doing here?
Hey, it's a good point. Hey-o.
No. See, wait, you coach hockey too, hey?
Yeah, I coached a little ice. Coached ball hockey at like world championships and stuff.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Look at that. That's something I didn't even, I did the research too, and I didn't even know that. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's a big ball hockey community around here too. A lot of the players that were on my team are actually from the Philly area.
How about that?
That's very cool. See that? We all learned something tonight. We can feel good about this. I think Jackie's going to be welcomed with open arms here by the city of Philadelphia.
So
now, we have to break you in here to Philadelphia.
Here we go.
Go ahead and spell Schuylkill. I'm just kidding.
No, we'll do a test. Next time we have Jackie on, we'll do like a Philadelphia test and see how much you've learned about the city when you come back on.
Listen,
that sounds fair.
If you think
prepared for that?
If you think that's hard, like I grew up in Schuylkill County, so imagine as like a first grader being told, "All right, kids, you have to spell Schuylkill. You have to spell Pennsylvania." Why couldn't we have it? New York City, New York. Very easy. Very easy. All right.
There's some things.
All right, so Jackie, you've been around the team now for maybe 3 days, right? I mean,
yeah,
I think that's
not even really around. I've been to 2 games and have no responsibilities.
No responsibilities whatsoever. You're like you're like Kevin Pollak in A Few Good Men, right? I have no responsibility here whatsoever. So you've watched 1 game. You didn't even go. There was not even a practice for you to go to, right? It was
no, I watched all the games on TV.
Okay, yes.
Yeah,
but
one game here.
1 game here. This is your second game here.
Yep.
Tomorrow's your first practice.
Yep.
And then they throw you feet into the fire. You're going to start covering a team when they go out on a West Coast road trip. You get to go to California. So that's kind of a cool deal. But what have you seen so far? Like, what are your first impressions of this team? Because let's remember, this team did not have a good reputation around the sport a year ago.
I think they play hard.
Yeah.
I think you see, you can hear the accent when I say that, but I think you see, when they're out there that they're playing for each other, which is really important, and, they play hard, and I think that's entertaining. Yeah, there's times when, it falls apart a little bit because they're young and they're still growing, but when you see a team that you can tell that they're playing for each other, it only helps you build and build and build.
And that's an important thing when you talk about it in this sport. Yes, no matter what the sport is, you want your guys playing for each other, right? I mean, that's always a thing. But it's always a little bit that much more important in this sport because you have a team like the Flyers who don't have a lot of top-end talent, or really any, if we're being really honest. And yet they're able to stay with teams like Vegas and Dallas and Carolina, who are your best teams in the sport, because of that mentality, right?
No, I think it's critical. Teams fall apart very easily when they don't play for each other. And when you have a team where, they know who's the next man up, they know their roles. Roles are important on a team, right? And any organization, like, you need to know your role. Your power play guy, penalty killer, fourth liner, whatever your role is. Enforcer, we don't really have those anymore, but knowing roles, knowing who you're playing for, who your teammates are, you know, you get in a scrum, we get in a fight, and you see guys stepping up and helping each other. Like, that's important. And I think we see that with these guys. They're all young, they're all growing and learning together. I mean, there's some older guys, but they're all growing and learning together. And the older guys that you have, I mean, Mark Stahl's hurt, but, you know, Mark Stahl is that kind of veteran guy that can take guys under his wing.
And that's an important thing, especially on this defense, because it's a very young defense for the most part. You know, we had a brief conversation beforehand, and you don't have to make your comparison if you don't want to, but that's okay. But we were talking a little bit about Cam York. And, you know, we've had some things that we've said on this show recently about him, is that he's frustrating to us as people who watch him on a night in, night out basis, and who knows, your opinion may change the more you watch him. But your initial impression of him is a little bit different than some of us, in that, you know, we're frustrated because we feel like it's there, there's talent there, and you can see the skill level there, and it just hasn't been consistent to a point yet. But you've seen some things in him that you think can really develop as he gets older into being a really top-end defenseman. I
think you got to let him go. He's that kind of guy. You got to let him play. You got to let him get out there. I mean, I watched a lot of him when he played World Juniors for USA. He's got a high skill level offensively, and you know, you're not gonna. It's hard sometimes to find guys that play offense and defense stuff so well, right? But I think when you see, I mean, there was that goal. What was it, like first, second game of the season where he made that play and skated in and scored? I mean, it was beautiful.
Yeah.
That's not something you necessarily teach, right? That's a hockey sense. That he's got a high IQ. And I think we were talking earlier, like, he's a California kid, so, you know, he's a little laid back. Maybe that doesn't fit sometimes.
I think that if he changes that, if he has a little bit more of a killer instinct when he's out there, to be a little more intense. He doesn't have to be super intense, but if he could just be a little bit more intense, I think that would help his game.
Yeah.
Because I think it would bring out the best parts of his game.
He's only 23,
yeah.
24. I mean, he's young. And defensemen, we all know, takes a lot. You know, it's very rare you get a defenseman that can step in. I mean, even Owen Power struggles, even, you know, Darlene struggles. Like, those guys, they have to develop and learn the game, and playing at the NHL level is very different than playing at the AHL level.
Someone just said, can Cam York be compared to Cam Fowler?
I haven't watched enough of Cam Fowler, to be honest with you. I mean, same name, but
that's a good way of looking at it, right?
Yeah, I mean, I watched Cam York, and I know. All right, I'll offer it up. I obviously grew up in New York, and I watched a lot of Brian Leetch, and I see elements of him at times, like that offensive skill that we saw, where he took it up the ice. It was pretty much an end-to-end rush, if I remember correctly. Did he score in that? I can't remember.
He did,
Yeah, he did, right?
Yes.
It was just a very high IQ, very offensively talented play, and I was like, okay, that's pretty impressive. I kind of like that.
I think the problem is, with a guy like Cam York, yes, a young guy needs to learn. It's important to get him reps. I do question if this is the place and the time, in that he's paired with Travis Sanheim, who is a guy that they are really relying on to have a bounce-back season, who at the early part of this season looked really good, but has had really quite awful streaks in the last 3 games. So there's part of me that wonders, all right, if the goal here is to kind of recalibrate and reset Travis Sanheim and set him up for success, should it be done at the expense of, you know, having him with such a young guy next to him? The inverse, I guess, can also be true, though. You look at York and you say, you want him to play with someone who can be dynamic and somebody who can kind of walk him through. And you might not want to have, you know, prior to injury, have paired him with like a Mark Stahl, because they don't play anywhere near the same kind of game. And you also probably want to have him in top pair or top 2 pair. I don't know what's happening over here. Or top 2 pair roles where he's played in all situations. So I don't know. I think that York has been disappointing, to put it pretty lightly. But you have to hope, if you're a Flyers fan, that the combo of he and Sanheim are going to get back on track, because it's looked ugly for large stretches here. The question, I guess, becomes, if you split them up, who do you split them up for, and who do you send them in? Maybe it's something that once Aristolainen comes back, whenever that is, maybe that's when it makes the most sense to make that move.
Well, I think having the right defensive pair, or the right defenseman that you're playing with, will help Cam York also. Maybe Travis Sanheim isn't the guy to play on his side, you know. That having the right person helps also build a development that we want to see, that you want to see him move forward with. So, yeah, maybe Travis Sanheim is not his defensive. Maybe they don't have that person in the organization yet, even.
I mean, in fairness, Matt Niskanen once made Ivan Provorov look like a #1 defenseman. So, I mean, anything's
possible there.
Fletcher Mort is still.
You just did it.
He's still waiting.
He who should not be named.
Must never go to home. Fletcher Mort is still waiting for Niskanen to unretire.
Yes, he's still waiting for that. Still waiting for that to happen. So the Flyers are going to face off against a Buffalo team that very similar record. The Flyers are 4-4-1. Buffalo's 4-5-1, or 4-5 rather, and maybe off to a little bit of a slower start than I think people thought they were going to have. I think a lot of people looked at Buffalo as a team that should be making that next step to becoming a playoff team, a contender this year. They do have a top defenseman in Rasmus Dahlin, who's been sensational. I think he's got like an 8-game point streak coming in. He can make it 9 in a row tonight. But they've had a few injuries as well, but they've been a little bit disappointing. And I think that this is a matchup. They have not been great defensively. I think if the Flyers can get that forecheck going, a lot like they did in the third period against Carolina, that this could be a successful game for them.
It'll be interesting to see how they play. I mean, Torts talked about in his post-game presser on Monday night about how, I think his determined was they got jumped in the first couple minutes of the game. And I think how they start is going to be incredibly critical to how this game goes. Yeah, they could turn it on. We've seen it. We saw it went on Monday, like 2 nights ago on Monday night. But the question is, can they come out that way? And I think that's going to be critical because this is a team that they, in theory, should beat because they're pretty even with them in the way the Flyers have been playing. Like, they're up there with them that they can compete with them. And you're right, they have some injuries and whatnot.
Yeah, no, I think this is a good matchup for them. Special teams, Jackie, has not been great for the Flyers, and not just this season. I mean, if we go back, this seems like a broken record on this show, where we talk about just how bad the special teams has been. I think it's a situation on the power play specifically where they try to do too much. They try to be really cute and make these, and I don't think they have those kinds of players. I think it's got to be a power play that just finds some open ice, gets the penalty kill box moving, or make those passes, get them moving, and then find a lane, get a shot to the net, and have people crashing and put in a rebound. I think that's what they got to do to kind of get this thing going, because you don't have that top end offensive skill that's going to put in goals on a 20 to 25% clip.
Well, I think what I actually commented to somebody in the press box on Monday was they're making one extra pass, and I think when you make that one extra pass, and I will say the vision though I'm seeing, like Bobby Brink, insane vision, right? Like he's finding guys, but the pass is too hard, or it's too in front of the guy, or too behind the guy, so there's not the connection. Like it needs to be more tape on tape. But watching what you're seeing, it's they're a little off, and I think, but once they click, I think it's going to be a really good power play. I think they're just making one extra pass too many.
One guy that I saw a nice pass the other night, just in his first game back into the lineup, was Morgan Frost. Makes a nice pass on the power play to Tyson Forster. Forster doesn't get the puck into the net. I think he was trying to prepare for to be hit on the side of the net and just kind of flubbed the shot. What is your first impression watching Morgan Frost? This has been a debate that we've had, I think, on every pregame press row show.
Yeah.
And some people, Russ is like, I am so tired of talking about Morgan Frost. But the fact of the matter is that it's a lightning rod conversation for fans, especially people who come in to see to our show. Some people think that he's going to be really good, and it's just a matter of letting him play and see it happen. Some people think that we've seen what Morgan Frost is, and it maybe should be sent somewhere else to play this style of game. I know you've only watched a few games, a handful of games,
and he hasn't played in most of those.
Right, that's true. What do you see when you see play?
Well, I have to be honest. I don't really remember him being out there on Monday.
There you go.
And
da-da! There it is!
So one thing is, like, you gotta. So years ago, I talked to Brendan Shanahan when he went to the Hall of Fame, and I was like, what do you want, like, your legacy to kind of be? And he always said, like, I want to be involved. I want people to remember that I was involved. And I think that's really, like, an important thing to take away, is that looking back, someone can say, oh yeah, I remember he did some. You don't have to do a whole lot. You have to do one thing, but he wanted people to remember they did something in a game. And I haven't watched, like I said, I haven't watched a lot, but what I've heard about Morgan Frost is he's high skill. And he's a high skill guy, and that's definitely something this team needs to have, like that high skill. I mean, imagine him with Bobby Brink.
Right.
He just needs the opportunity, whether that's here or somewhere else, I don't know. And sometimes it's always better to get traded because it's, fresh start and different coach, a different message sometimes works for different people. Not everyone resonates with the coach. I mean, we've seen that plenty of places and plenty of players. So I don't know. I'll keep an eye out tonight. Is he even playing tonight?
He's in the lineup.
Yeah.
He is in the lineup
Well,
tonight.
he's in the lineup. Will he show up? Will he show out? Who knows?
It's got to be hard when you haven't played, though, for, like, what was it, 6 games, 7 games? Like,
Yeah.
I mean, it's...
He missed 6 games, yeah.
Yeah, you got to turn it on all of a sudden. It's got to be a little hard, but I mean, he's professional and he's done it. And
There was a small part. I knew that they were going to put him back in once they had a bad game, which is exactly what happened. They put him back in. But there was a small part of me that was thinking, now that he's missed 6 games, he's eligible for an AHL conditioning assignment, which could last for up to 2 weeks.
Right.
And I was thinking to myself, are they really going to do this to this kid? Are they going to send him down on a conditioning assignment and go away for 2 weeks and then really kind of bury him? There was part of me was thinking that that's where Torts was headed with this.
It's a great idea.
But didn't do it. They didn't.
Great idea.
They didn't do it.
I don't know. We'll see what happens.
Yeah,
I mean, you never...
We will see. Well, Jackie, we appreciate you coming on. Best of luck to you on the beat. Can't wait to have you come back on once you've been around the team and getting to know some of the guys and get some really good scoops, and we'll bring you back on and you can have all these great stories to tell.
We will ask you what your favorite cheesesteak place is. We will probably test your spelling.
I have
knowledge.
eaten at one place already.
Where'd you have?
But it was before Jim's, I think before it
Oh,
burned.
you went to a good one.
Before I think a fire happened or something.
Yeah. That was
so that was 2 years ago I had Jim's.
Yeah, Jim's a salad.
Yeah, do not do Pat's and Gino's.
Unless they want to sponsor the Press Row Show, in which case, what a great place for a cheesesteak.
I've heard the roast pork is like the thing to get.
John's Roast Pork in South Philly.
D'Alessandro's
is really good too. Yeah.
Hold on, why are we plugging these places? They have to sponsor. It's fine.
No, it's
the number one pregame, intermission, and postgame show.
Yeah.
Right here
And
on the Press Row Show.
So I did talk to Ken Hitchcock, who's going into the
that's
Hall
right.
of
I
Fame.
thought you told us about this.
It's all good.
I forgot about that.
So I have that'll come out either next week or right before the Hall of Fame induction.
So you did like you're gonna have a full length feature on it?
That'll be like a Q&A kind of thing.
Okay.
He did a Q&A, and I will say he said his biggest. I can't remember the exact phrase he used, but let's just say the biggest disappointment in his career, the thing he regrets, was here in Philadelphia.
And I'll give a little tease. I want everybody. First of all, I want everybody to read Jackie's story when it comes out. But a little tease is we did an interview with Hitch during pandemic. We caught up with like a bunch of former Flyers players, coaches, etc. And Hitch told us about that as well. So if there's anybody who wants to go back and listen to an old Snow the Goalie episode.
But it definitely hurt him.
It did.
He still carries
it's been 20 whatever years, and like you could hear it in his voice, like
it bothers him. And I'll tell you, as someone who covered that team should have won a Stanley Cup.
That's what he says.
Yeah, that team should have won a Stanley Cup.
That's what he says. Yeah.
All right, great. Well, Jackie, once again, thank you so much. It's been awesome to have you on.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
And we will have you back again, I promise.
Sounds
Absolutely.
good.
Great.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jack.
Thank you. Jackie Spiegel, new beat writer for the Philadelphia Inquirer. Make sure that you check out her work. Starting, I think, Saturday will be the first game she's covering here at Wells Fargo. And then she will be out on the road and with the team at that point, Russ. So, it's kind of cool to have another new hockey voice in town.
It is. I think it's nice. Sometimes it's refreshing. I said what I said. I'm always critical of media, right? I think it's good that the biggest paper in the city has somebody who knows, first of all, knows. Second of all, enjoys covering hockey. And as she said, she's coached hockey. She's been around it her whole life.
Yep.
I think that sometimes media outlets get caught up in falling in love with the idea of certain kind of writer, reporter, whatever. I think that there's just institutional knowledge you have to have about the sport in order to cover the sport at a high level, and especially like a place like the Inquirer. I think it's great. Now, are we going to hold it against her that she's from dirty, awful New York? No, I don't think so, because she's again.
But look,
you got to give her a chance here. And
I think you make a good point. And the reason I say that that your point is really good is this. It would be like someone saying to me, Anthony, we want you to cover be a beat writer covering soccer. Now, would I do it? If that was my job, of course I would do it. If that were my job, would I work my tail off to do it to the best of my ability? Yeah. I would. Would I,
complain about it incessantly?
Make an effort to learn the sport as best I can? Yes. Would I be at a disadvantage being someone who does not love the sport? Completely.
Yeah,
a complete 100%. And utter disadvantage.
100%.
And I think that, so I do think that she's just a step ahead, looking at it, as someone who loves the sport of hockey.
Yes.
Because it's not an easy sport to talk about, write about, if you don't really know it.
Yep.
And so the fact that she's got that institutional knowledge to begin with, I think, is a huge step for the Enquirer, and it's going to be they're going to get good coverage out of her.
I think they will.
Pretty confident.
I think they certainly will. And you know what? She gets to benefit in a pretty nice way because she's on the job for a little bit and then gets to go out to California for a few games.
That's great.
Is that great timing?
Do you know where my first road game was when I was named a beat writer to cover the team and how to travel?
I don't know. They didn't have airplanes when that happened.
The Wright brothers weren't around yet.
Yeah.
They couldn't fly me somewhere.
I'm guessing did they take you down to the Delaware border? I don't know where.
So you got to remember the very first year that I traveled as a beat reporter.
Uh-huh.
Now, I had been on a couple of road trips before that, but it was kind of a different story. But my first road year traveling as a beat reporter was the year of the lockout.
Oh.
So it was the AHL. I was covering the AHL.
What year was that?
2004-5.
It's weird because it feels like you should have been covering this team for a long time.
I was covering the team from year 2000. Thanks, Dan. Since the year 2000. But I just did home games. Now, 04 to 03-04 season, I did go on the road, but that was kind of on my own volition to try and get people to pay attention to the work that I was doing.
Yeah.
But my first official season covering the team for the Daily Times was in 04-05, and there, of course, was no NHL season.
Yeah.
So we had to go on the road. That season started on the road in Hartford, Connecticut.
Yep.
Ed got it right. If you put it up there, yeah, Ed got it. Hartford, Connecticut, the first game was in the mall, the Hartford Civic Center, which is, in fact, in a mall. That's no lie, Russ. It's a shopping mall, and that's where the arena is. And the arena was so old then, and it still exists, there was no press box. So you, as a writer, were set up at a table amongst the crowd.
I love it.
And you had to, leave your stuff. They used to have a security guy stand there and watch your stuff so that it didn't get stolen.
I love it. I think that's where media has gone awry. I think that when they get to sit up in their cushy press box with their coffee and occasional milkshakes, they get soft,
Yeah.
You got to be around the people.
Yeah.
That's what we always say.
And
that's why we come to you live every pregame, intermission, and postgame here on the Snow the Goalie YouTube channel or Facebook or Twitter, X, from the unnamed sportsbook that does not sponsor the show. Speaking of sponsors of the show, I think we're going to have some pretty cool stuff coming up soon.
Yeah.
But if you're watching out there and you're like, hey, I think I would like to get a piece of Snow the Goalie, the piece of the Press Row Show, you can reach out, snowthegoalie@gmail.com or any of the social channels.
One other quick story from that trip to Hartford.
Can we talk about the game? There's 10 minutes. I love you.
Yes, we got plenty of time.
I love you. I love the story. But there's a game tonight.
It has to deal with somebody else. It's not just me.
All right.
Somebody that
let us know in the comments. Would you rather
somebody that I saw at the Zach Hill event?
Yes.
Former Flyers beat writer Tim Panaccio. We were at the game in Hartford, and then after the game, the parking lot attendant locked our car in the area where it was. It was this outdoor parking lot with a fence.
Yeah.
And so they closed the fence, and our car was still inside, so we couldn't get to the car. So Panach wanted to climb the fence. This is what he wanted to do: climb the fence and then drive through the fence with the car, which I refused to do. I did not do. We actually called. We made a phone call to the local law enforcement, and they came and found a way to get us in, and we were able to leave. But he was incensed and fired up and wanted to drive through the fence on the way out. So that was a
Great,
fun.
that doesn't sound unhinged or anything. All right, let's get to tonight's game. Now the Flyers and Sabres are playing a home and home. They're here tonight, and they'll be going up to New York for the second game. And then we are back here on Saturday for another Flyers home game, which is great. And then the Flyers go out on the road for like 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
Where there's no press row show, but there will be the morning after show, which you can find on YouTube. It's in a separate playlist.
And 3 of those morning after shows are after Hockey After Dark. So
yeah,
we'll be in good form.
We'll be in
those
good
mornings.
form. We'll drink our coffee nice and early. We'll be really excited. All right. I want to get into tonight.
Yeah.
I swear, I don't want to do another, should Morgan Frost be in this lineup? What do we expect from Morgan Frost? At this point, all right, it's still early in the season. I get it. I want this to go one of 2 ways, and I think Flyers fans should too. He either just plays like an absolute stud and proves himself and is beyond visible in these games. And then that allows the team to make the decision, yes, we want to now trade him at a higher value than when he was scratched 6 games in a row. Or you say, hey, you know what? Maybe there's something here, and he's going to be up here the whole year, and he's going to play a meaningful role. Or for the wheels to fall off. Because the worst thing that could happen with this player and this team in a rebuild year is for him to just, some games kind of show up, some games to not show up. Him to disappear against good teams, him to put up some points against bad teams. That doesn't help anything. When you're in a rebuild, you need to know what you have. And guys that are just kind of like floating or just kind of skating by, pun intended, like that's just not it. That doesn't help you in the short term or the long term. Do you have any disagreement to that? Like,
no. Okay, I'm wondering where you're going with this.
I just said,
you're right.
I want to see it go one of 2 ways. I'm sure that people at home are kind of like annoyed and frustrated with it because it's become this major talking point. It's not just with us. It's just been, I think, in a way, it's almost a good sign, right? Because this is in a rebuild. There are usually a lot of different players that you have on this, like, pedestal, and then that you're also kind of ripping. And right now, a lot of guys have performed pretty well. There aren't a bunch of social pariahs. There aren't a bunch of guys that appear to be in Tortorella's doghouse right now.
Speaking about hockey in the dark, look at us right now. Holy cow.
Well, Andrew over there, we have to see if intern Andrew's able to adjust it. You know what? I'd rather him not, because if he does, and he does it poorly, we'll lose video. So I'm going to have to readjust this thing again like I did the other night. Let's get to some of these other guys. Cam York, I respect Jackie. I respect Jackie's opinion. I don't see it. I don't see it. I think that when she's here covering the team consistently here for the next few weeks, she's going to see it too. Cam York playing in juniors was a totally different player than Cam York playing at the NHL level right now. He just does not look like he has it. Now, does that mean that he's not going to have it this entire season? No. But am I, like, confident in his ability right now to, like, do the job? No, I'm not. I wonder, is this a byproduct of Travis Sanheim's play not popping off the page? Is that part of why we're not seeing something out of York?
It's so funny because a lot of people think that Sanheim has popped off the page, and at times he has in this season. And, he has had a nice start to his season. He's putting up some offensive numbers, right? They're good.
Yeah.
But he's also had a few situations, and I thought last game he was terrible. I think he's had a little bit of inconsistency, and I think Cam York maybe is a byproduct of that inconsistency.
Yeah.
But he hasn't really done anything to establish himself either.
Yes.
And look, it's early yet. I mean, really, let's be honest. It's really only his second full season, right? I mean, even last year wasn't a full season, but it's really only his second full season in the NHL. Defensemen do take a little bit longer to develop. I think that there are some things to like about Cam York, and I do think that he will be a very good defenseman in this league eventually.
Yeah.
I don't think Cam York is a number 1 defenseman or ever will be. I don't really think he's a 2. I think there's a possibility he gets there, but I don't know. I think he's more of a second pair guy, and that's okay if he is.
Yeah.
If he is, that's okay. I ultimately think, and the comparison we were talking off air with Jackie beforehand, and the comparison that I brought up, I said, less Brian Leach ability, more Dan Boyle ability. And if he becomes Dan Boyle,
that's not bad.
The Flyers should be thrilled if he's Dan Boyle, right?
Yeah.
So that's what I think. But I also think that Dan Boyle was not a great defensive defenseman.
Correct.
So therefore, especially as he got older, which could be a little bit of a hindrance as York gets older. But I would be perfectly fine if that's what he became.
Yeah.
I just think that the expectation level for him needs
too high.
Needs to be lowered Just a little bit.
Well,
a little bit.
A big part of why the expectation is so high is because, one, he was a first-round pick, and let us not forget the fact that the Flyers passed on Cole Caulfield twice in that draft.
But they passed on Cole Caulfield because they knew who their second pick was going to be, because they knew that their second pick was going to be overlooked, and that was Bobby Brink.
Yes.
And so they felt like if we could get the defenseman that we want here and then take Brink with the other pick, Brink can be the poor man's version of Caulfield, and now we fill two needs at once because they were able to trade into that spot. So I think that was...
That's that kind of flawed logic that gets you fired.
It's not, but it's not a flawed logic.
It's drafting because you think positionally that he's the best. He fits what you want because you want to fill a hole instead of taking the best player available. And I think at the time, a lot of scouts had evaluated Caulfield as a better player. Now, will Caulfield end up being a legitimate scoring player at the NHL level? Like, I think the jury's still out. I think that he has flashes. I'm not trying to make it sound like, they committed some kind of horrible, egregious error by taking York, and that there was this, unbelievable 40-plus goal a year scoring stud that they passed on twice. But I don't know. I want to see something out of York. Let's get to in net. In net tonight is whom?
By the way, did you see this?
No.
It's Carter Hart's in net. But did you see Greg McCavity?
This one?
Yeah.
Oh, got the Bundy Butte shirt on tonight.
So it means it's a win.
Time for a win.
It means it's a win. And whenever he wears it, they win.
From Vineland.
Yes.
Who was through here a few games ago.
Yeah.
Ended up on a Snow the Goalie TikTok and Instagram reel and a YouTube short.
Kevin has a good comment if you're going to pop that one up.
Says, I have confidence the Flyers can draft forwards, but will they ever draft a legitimate defense? Here's the answer to that. It doesn't matter. Because, as Jonesy pointed out on the show a few weeks ago, when you are in a league where there are maybe 6 number one defensemen, true number one defensemen, the likelihood of you drafting that guy, pretty low, but the likelihood of you being able to go out and sign him in free agency is a little bit higher if you allow yourself that cap space. And I think that that's the one mercenary position you can go after. What?
No, I love our viewers. I love their comments. Did you see Matthew Bennick's comment right above Kevin?
Matt from Greece?
Yeah, you know why that
Matt
is?
from Greece says 3-1 Flyers.
Because he's from Paxinos.
That's right.
Matt from Greece.
Paxinos.
Yeah, that was good.
Yeah.
We got a question there from Michael. Do you feel the future top pair D-man will be acquired by draft, free agency, or trade? I would say, if I was a betting person on this, that it would be one of the latter two. Probably free agency more likely than trade, because they're not going to want to trade a lot for somebody like that. And usually a number one defenseman is not available via trade, but they do sometimes pop up via free agency. It's hard to draft that player. You need to have that top 3 to 5 pick and get it right.
Yeah.
And get a defenseman up there that's going to be Alex Pietrangelo or Victor Hedman, or like a kid you're going to see tonight here in Buffalo, Rasmus Dahlin, who's really, really talented. You have to get that player in that draft and have your lottery pick be available to get him.
Yep.
That's a lot of ifs that need to come together. So to me, it's easier to say, hey, look, if it happens in the draft and that player's there, awesome, you got it, great.
You got to wrap.
But if not, I think, well, they haven't even sung the anthem yet. Relax. You got 3 minutes.
We're not going to talk through the anthem. That's disrespectful.
Oh, I'm sorry. Can we want us to stand? Should we stand?
I mean, yeah, I think we should.
The great lines in radio history was WIP's Tom Bigby said, we don't want to play the anthem over the radio. What are people going to do? Pull over on the side of the road and get out of their car and stand at attention?
Who's to say? We'll be back for the first intermission. I do want to get to our predictions really quick. Ant has the Flyers winning 5-3, Bundy winning with the Sabres winning 4-2, and I have them winning the Flyers winning 4-2. So somebody's going to pick up a point tonight, and somebody's not. Okay. We shall see.
All right, go ahead so we can stand.
We'll talk to you guys in the first intermission back here on YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook. yes. Welcome into the Press Row Show, the #1 rated pregame, intermission, and postgame show that emanates here live from the Wells Fargo Center in the unnamed sportsbook. They don't sponsor us. We don't say the name. Welcome in. And, of course, I'm here with Anthony SanFilippo, but the guy that you're really here for, the guy that you want to hear from, that you heard on the radio for pregame, and you hear now on the Press Row Show, is Bundy, the ultimate beaut. Find him on the end and on Twitter at Therien6, or find him and his face on the shirt of Greg from Vineland, who's walking around Wells Fargo Center with the Bundy Butte shirt that you can get on
Real honor to be here, Russ. You're off to a wild start, too. I love it. How you doing, Anthony?
Unhinged.
I think it's 2 games in a row now, Bundy, where we've reached the intermission and we're wondering how the score is what it is.
Yeah.
Because the Flyers did not look good in that period, and we got to get to Carter Hart and the injury. I mean, he looks like he hurt hip, groin, something in that general vicinity. The way he was favoring it there, and I think it actually affected him on the second Buffalo goal.
Yeah.
The second one that was called off, or the second one that counted?
No, the one that counted, because that's when they pulled him.
Yeah.
We'll get to that. But on the whole, the period was just not very good. And yet the Flyers enter into this intermission, it's 2-2.
2 kind of fluky goals for the Flyers. I mean, well, certainly the Farabee, you want to try to make a pass. It bounced up and fell behind the goaltender. The second goal was going to be a Sanheim shot, and Buffalo got their stick on it, and it ended up being a pass, and Atkinson, right place, right time, gets his stick on it and goes up the short side corner. It's 2-2 here in South Philly. It could be a little bit worse. But again, guys, I don't know what you felt. It felt a little bit like the Carolina game the other day.
Yep.
A similar type of formula, recipe, whatever you want to call it. And what I'm seeing, Anthony, is I see a Flyer team that needs to be more desperate defensively. They're circling in their own zone, and they're trying to, cover in a zone. You can't do that. You got to get the puck stopped and get it out.
And then keep in mind also the goal that was called off because of Buffalo was barely offside, and they were offside, but barely offside.
Yeah.
They really looked bad on that play, Bundy. They backing in. Coots. My goodness, did he look bad on that play. It kind of opened up the ice for Buffalo, and fortunately for the Flyers, the video team was able to identify that it was an offside coming in, and they were able to get the call overturned. But, yeah, I mean, it was a lot like the Carolina game. That the start was not very good. Although they did get off to the 1-0 lead because of the lucky goal for Farabee, kind of hits the stick and rides up on the goalie, who, by the way, has one of the great names in the sport for Buffalo. Their backup goalie who's been playing. And I say that, and I got to pull up because I forget what the middle name is now off the top of my head. But it's such a great name.
I like how you're kind of vamping here.
Well, it's Luke.
This was poorly planned.
It's Luukkonen, but it's Uki something Luukkonen, but there's double K's in all 3 names. And how often does that happen?
Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen.
Yeah, Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen. That's it. It's 2 K's, 2 K's, 2 K's.
It's a great name.
That's unbelievable.
Right? That's pretty good.
That's a lot of K's in 3 names. Wow.
6 K's in his name.
Wow.
That's pretty unbelievable. Right? So, but really, the story, I think, of the period, and we're kind of burying the lead a little bit here, is Carter Hart getting hurt. And it looked weird, Bunny. I don't know if it was when the player landed on him a little bit there, or if he actually heard it making the save right before that. But it looked like it was somewhere in that, like I said, groin, hip area.
You know what's really great about Snow the goalie on top of everything?
That it's the only Flyers podcast?
No, what is good? You're going to make me forget what I was going to say.
Sorry.
Is that when I used to broadcast radio and TV, you could never speculate an injury. Like it was, you got orders down.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, we can speculate injuries here. I'm still a goalie. It looked to me like it was a hip injury.
Yeah.
I don't know how else to say it. It was a far side. He got caught up. His leg got pushed down. So it's either a knee or a hip.
Yep.
And when I saw him not being able to reach out for the puck in the second, you don't have to be a rocket scientist, and I'm certainly not that, to figure out that he had trouble pushing out to get the puck. So immediately they came out, the trainer came out, spent a minute with him, and it was pretty obvious that he was going to make sure that Sam Ersson was going to finish this game.
Yeah. And it was like, the trainer comes out, talks to Hart for a minute. Hart kind of convinces him that he's okay. Hart stays in the game. As soon as he couldn't make that play on the pass shot in front, where he's like sticking it, he just got kind of like just barely poked his stick out to touch the puck, and they score the second goal. Tortorella didn't even wait. He sent the trainer on the ice to take him off. Like he walked him off the ice.
What happens is with a goalie, and I thought, we were kind of looking. I'm saying, hey, guys, I think something's wrong with Hart because he was slow getting up. Usually you don't even have that rope. Like you're going to get the hook right away because you can't have a goalie at 100%. You can't have him at 80. He's either got to be 100% or he's a no-go. So that was the right call by Torts. If he noticed it, he's not a guy who's going to mess around. Get him, go find out what's wrong. If he can't play, get him off the ice. And that's the way it goes.
I would think you're going to keep him out the rest of the game for precautionary purposes.
When you get pulled, you're done.
Yeah. Rest of the game.
It was yesterday. Well, hold on. Pause a second. The Flyers sent Felix Sandstrom down. Was it yesterday? The email came through?
Yeah.
Or at least it's a paper transaction. But they sent...
No, they sent him down on a conditioning assignment.
They sent him down. So Sam Ersson now gets to come in a role that he hasn't really gotten to this season, which is Hart pulled from a game. So now you get to see what Ersson can put together here for 2 periods. Certainly a good opportunity for him. And based on the fact that it could very well be a hip injury, one has to then think, well, Hart might be out the next game in Buffalo, if not longer. We could be seeing more of Sam Ersson here for the next week, maybe longer. We don't want to speculate that. What do you expect to see out of a goalie? And Bundy, you could speak to this. The backup goalie coming in at an unexpected time. It's not as if it was an avalanche of goals and you kind of start mentally prepping yourself to come into the game. You're coming in for an injured starter. How hard is that for a backup goalie?
You know what? It all depends. I think right now he can look at it like it's an opportunity to just go out and perform.
Yeah.
There's no pressure. There's no one behind him. In a game like this, I mean, listen, he's got a 2-2 hockey game at the end of the first period. And really an opportunity to go out and kind of salvage this game for this team. So I like the opportunity for him. He's in a spot now. It's not like they're down 3-0. And God, I'm reading some of these quotes as I'm talking. It's just amazing.
You can't look at the screen because some of them are great.
The multitasking that's required to do this. I just go play hockey, and you got an opportunity. Like we can really do a lot here. Having a really, really good rest of this game.
Look, he did face a couple of shots there, after Hart goes out, and I thought he looked good on a very small sample of the end of that period. So for a guy who's not expecting to be in this game tonight to come in and be, sharp for, again, 3 or 4 shots, whatever it was, that's got to be at least a positive sign when you're going forward that, okay, he's in the game. He's mentally prepared to do his job as the backup goalie today, because sometimes a goalie will come in and be like, oh, man. It does happen, look good.
And it does happen right before intermission, which will give him the chance to kind of ramp up and it actually gives him a longer warm-up period than he would have otherwise had. Also probably doesn't hurt that I don't want to downplay what the Sabres are, but they're not world beaters. This isn't a team that you're coming in against that's...
Well, they could score.
Depends who you ask, Russ, to be honest with you. Yeah.
They have good offense. I mean, they're not a great defensive team other than Dahlin.
Yeah.
I mean, he's more of an offensive defenseman, although he's pretty much an all-around defenseman. I think he's a top 5 defenseman probably in the league. But but other than that, no, they're not a great defensive team. But they have guys who can score goals. They got guys who can put the puck in the net. So... yeah, this will be a good test.
Good transition. Speaking of guys who put the puck in the back of the net, you get a goal out of Farabee to start. You get another goal from Atkinson. And the first thing I said, I looked at you guys, and when Atkinson scored that goal, I went trade value up. I get it. Still early in the season, a lot can happen. But boy, oh boy, the more he gets involved, and it's a brilliant veteran play to be in the perfect position for when that puck came through and to put it in the back of the net. Let's start with Atkinson. The ability to score is something that you can't overvalue in the league. Heads-up play, are you impressed with what you've seen from him tonight and in the season in general?
Yeah, go ahead, Bundy. I'm sorry.
No, I mean, I think Anthony will say the same thing. I mean, he's a classic goal scorer, right? Like a high to mid-level guy. He's done it before. He's a guy who's, for whatever reason, we talk about goal scoring and skill sets, he's in the right place at the right time. And I think that involves a little bit of skill as well. So he's done a good job, and that's what they expect from him. You need him to pop a goal here, and that's a huge goal in a game like this, to keep it 2-2 at the end of one period.
Yeah, and I think that, when you look at the play, and we were talking about this when it happened, it's just a veteran move, knowing that when he passes the puck to Sanheim's probably taking a shot there. It ends up being more of a pass than a shot, as it turns out, and he just knows, hey, just get my stick on the ice in the lane there, and maybe I could, if it hits it, great, it'll deflect, and maybe the goalie misses it. And that's exactly what happened. And it wasn't anything more than that. It wasn't like some great skill play. It was just knowing if I get my blade on the ice there, I can make something happen.
It's kind of like Crosby, right? You ever see a scrum in front of the net where he doesn't get in there? He waits around a perimeter.
Yep.
Yeah.
And why does the puck, like 50% of the time,
Always
find his
finds
stick?
Right, just
It's
finds it.
amazing. It's unbelievable.
Let's get to Farabee. He's a guy who I think we were critical of at points last season. And in the same way that I think we go back to Travis Konechny kind of being the heartbeat of the team, Farabee kind of goes as the team goes as well. And he's had a strong start to the season. This was his 6th goal or 5th goal.
I think it's his 5th for Farabee.
This early in the season. Nice bounce back. It's a strong start for him. It's the place that you can build off.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of a fortunate goal. I mean, he's just across the blue line or coming down the wall, and I think he was thinking he's going to throw it in front or maybe just get a shot off, and have somebody look for a rebound. And the defenseman is trailing the play, and he's reaching with his stick from behind, which, I don't know, Bundy, is that the right play in that spot for that defenseman? And then it just deflects off the stick and goes up over the Luukkonen's shoulder for a goal.
So here's my thoughts with Farabee. He's scoring goals, but I still don't know what he is as a hockey player. Like, I have no idea what he is. He doesn't, there's not a lot of checking in the zone. He's not a playmaker. He's a guy that you got to find to get the puck in front of the net, got a good shot. But in terms of the full 200-foot player, I don't know who he is yet. And I bet you he's not really sure himself.
That's fair.
It is. I mean, it's like
Yeah.
Konechny a little bit. Because, and again, it's not a shot at him. But you have to do more to just score 25 goals if that's all you're doing. If that's all you're out there to do on a bad team, well, then I guess you've done your job. But I know what the people here that took over want to do. They want to build something that's beyond that.
Yeah.
So you're a responsible, good 200-foot hockey player.
Yeah.
And I still think he's trying to find that.
So the contribution needs to be more holistic. It can't just be that you're putting the puck in the back of the net. It's that you're contributing in all facets of the game. Without it, it's, you don't want to say hollow stats.
Yeah.
But especially as you're building and you're trying to build the culture and do the rebuild.
You have to have some of it, right? But the other thing is too, just with a guy players like that, you can't be just a perfect defensive player and expect to score 40 goals either. There's a little give and take with that. I understand that. Goal scorers need to get their goals. It's like their food.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's always important to make sure you're doing the right thing. Play a responsible game, because that sends messages to the rest of your teammates too of playing the right way. Any team that's won a cup that gets deep in playoffs, ask those players about that. They grew as a team, they played the right way for one another, and that's why they had good runs.
And was there anybody else who stuck out to you in that first? You know what? Let's go to somebody who didn't really stick out and hasn't really stuck out since returning to the lineup. Morgan Frost.
He made a nice play,
Yeah.
nice defensive play at one point in the period. Coming back and stripping the puck from behind at the blue line.
He ended up on all fours after that play.
But I thought it was that's an encouraging play. It just in and of itself, it's very innocuous play that not a lot of people are going to pay attention to. But I can assure you that the coaches are paying attention to it, because one of the things that has been a knock on Frost is how he plays in his own end, or coming back and going to get the puck right after he doesn't have it. Obviously, everyone knows he's a skill player and he's good with the puck, but he's not been good without the puck and not been good at getting it back. And so that was, again, it's one play in the first period of a midweek game in November, but he's skating hard and makes a play to steal the puck and turn it back the other direction.
Remember, you're not going to see it every shift, right? Everyone wants to see this guy just come out and world beat every shift. It's not going to happen, But you're going to have a couple shifts where you get those opportunities. Anthony made a great point. Playing away from the puck in that position, that's so important.
Yeah.
Because if you can't be a center that's all offense, you just can't be in this league the way it is, especially slotted high.
Yeah.
You have to have responsibility defensively as well. Anthony said it. He made a good play. Let him play for a bit. Give him a chance. Yeah. Let's see what he's got. And I'm willing to do that. It's got to be a sample size a lot longer than 5 games, 5 to 10. But I'm not worried about him yet. He played last game. I know from being scratched before, that's nervous that first game back. Probably thinking about it a little bit now. Now he's got to play. Get out there, go play your game. Don't think, react. That's always what people say in the sport. The great players don't think. They just react to what the situation is on the ice, and that's what I'd like to see him do a lot more of.
Bundy, we had a little bit of a debate going on up here pregame about Cam York. and we've talked about Cam York the last few games as being somebody who doesn't really pop off the ice. Did you see anything in that first period that gives you a little bit of hope of where his game might be trending tonight?
He was just okay.
Yeah.
You know, like okay is fine, but okay's not going to get you far. It's going to be fine in the moment. He's apprehensive in the D zone. I don't think he's fully got his feet moving in the D zone to skate the puck.
Yeah.
Anthony, am I missing? Is he not skating the puck enough for a guy who's been touted as that, right?
Right.
He needs to be more authoritative. I hope that makes sense.
That does.
Yeah, and another thing, Bundy, I mean, and this is me going to try and defend him a little bit, and I'm just doing this as a devil's advocate kind of thing. You know, it is only his second season full season in the NHL. Actually, like I said pregame, it's not even really a full season because last season he didn't get called up till I think it was December, right?
Yep.
Is it a situation where now he's being thrust into a role that maybe he's not had before at this level on a consistent basis, at least, maybe a little bit at the end of the year last year, but not on a consistent basis, and that he needs to learn how to play in this role, and you got to give him that time to figure that part of his game out.
You're saying Cam York, right?
Cam York, yeah.
It is, again, and when you have to work with defensemen, but I think it's sometimes you got to use the assets that you have that's best to you. What is it with him? Puck skill and skating.
Right.
Use them. And use that defending as well. Like, those are little things that he has to understand. I have them. Not a lot of other guys do. So use to what is to your advantage as a player. Find what that is and stick to it, marry it, and don't change it.
We do have breaking news, an update about Carter
Yep.
Hart. He will not return to tonight's game with a mid-body injury. Mid-body, for those keeping track at home.
There's a new one for you.
That
mid-body.
certainly is not knee. That would appear to be hip.
Hip or lower back. I mean,
That's
I
as
think
mid as it gets.
that could be
Yeah.
it could be a lower back thing too, right? A muscle in
We
the
don't
lower back.
speculate injuries.
We don't not here. Not here on the Press Row Show, the #1 rated pregame intermission and postgame show. We'd never do such a thing.
We would not.
Number one
But, like,
rated. Wouldn't that suggest
hip or
that
back
there
makes
are-
sense.
that
What
there
are we
are
rated
others?
again?
#1, the people are telling us.
Okay.
You know, I had somebody ask me on Twitter in a DM if we have any kind of like tangible proof of the ratings, and I could just say it's in the hearts and minds of the Delaware Valley. They know it's true. You know, that's what really counts. It's not about the numbers. It's about the people and the friends you made along the way.
Wait till you hear the story post-game.
Yeah, that's right.
All the way from Indianapolis.
Oh, that is Bundy has
I
a
can't
story.
wait for that one.
I think that is a post-game story.
That's just the best.
And it's fantastic. Make sure you come back for the second intermission and postgame. Don't forget, while the period's going on, we're not allowed to show you what's happening in the arena, but we do have the game cast up. So if you don't have access to the TNT game, you can follow along on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter, where we'll have the game center up tracking the stats for the game. So for Ant, for Bundy, I'm Russ. We'll talk to you again in the second intermission. welcome into the Press Row Show, the number 1 rated second period intermission show. I'm Russ Joy, that's Anthony SanFilippo and Bundy down on the end. It's still tied, 2-2. And before we get into it, as you know, we are not allowed to use profanity here on the Press Row Show. We can on the morning after, and we can on the Snow the Goalie podcast. It's a BS call, a big old BS call to end the second period, where Nick Delorier merely comes in, gives a man a hug from behind, and apparently that's a roughing penalty. That's 2 minutes. Yeah. Anthony, let the people know what you think.
Look, I thought Hathaway giving us the second shot back, the retaliatory second shot, if you wanted to give that a penalty, it would be a weak call, but okay, I at least understand it. Delorier came in and just grabbed a guy after the whistle from behind in a scrum, which happens every scrum. Somebody grabs somebody like that, and they call a penalty. It's ridiculous.
Insane.
Absolutely ridiculous penalty. So, not that that's the story of the period. I mean, nothing happened as far as goals that period. But honestly, I thought Bundy, I thought that the Phillies played, here we go again. The Flyers played.
Only one Philly team. Well,
they're done, Anthony.
Yeah, they're done. The Flyers played a pretty good period on the whole. There were a couple of mistakes in there, but I think that they controlled the play. More of the period was played in Buffalo's end. They only gave up 4 shots on goal, really making it easier on Urson. I thought it was a pretty solid period overall by the team.
You know what? I agree. That was a better second period. I mean, I thought that they kind of clamped down in between the hash marks in their own zone. They those opportune cross-ice passes in the defensive zone from Buffalo. The Flyers did that. And they actually turned in transition a few times in that period and came back and made it very difficult on Buffalo. Just, I mean, there was maybe wide a little bit on a couple shots. Sanheim at the end. Atkinson had another couple of opportunities. Forster and Cates, we were talking about them, Anthony. They're close, and you can just feel like Forster really needs to get off the schneid and get that goal because he's feeling it a little bit. So trying those guys in the third period.
Yeah,
too.
Noah Cates had a wide open net, and he just couldn't corral the puck in the crease, and it would have been a tap. It would have been a tap-in goal, and it just kind of like rolled off of the stick blade and went wide. That was got to be a disappointing one that he's probably kicking himself over a little bit.
Noah Cates is a guy that we legitimately have not spent any time talking about through the start of the season. He's a guy who I think performed pretty well last year, gave a lot of people some hope that he could be an underrated piece of the rebuild. Has he looked to you guys at any point like a guy who's lost? You know, like we talk a lot about the fact that Bobby Brink and Owen Tippett have remained engaged, and even in game in, game out, if they're not finding the back of the net, they still look good. Has Cates' play dropped at all to you, or is it just kind of a case of he's there, he's not actively bad, but he's not actively blowing your doors off either?
I think that Noah Cates is what he is, and he's a good defensive forward. I think that we probably saw a little bit more offense out of him last year than you should probably expect. I think he's more of this type of player, and that's not a bad thing. You know, we always felt all along Noah Cates is a third-line center. He was playing a lot of first-line center last year, sometimes second line, but he was playing in situations with better offensive players a season ago, so that's probably why you started to get more points out of him. And this year he's more in that traditional checking line role. That said, he should be at least a little bit better offensively and hasn't been. So I think that's I think he's been kind of just a little off, Bundy. I don't know if you're getting the same impression.
Yeah, and the one thing you want to do too, when you're like I always said, the third line is one of the most important lines, if not sometimes the most important line in hockey, because it depends what you're up against, right? Most third lines, you don't know what you're going to get if you're going to be going up against a clamoring defensive third line. Or sometimes they're the different makers, right? Because they always say the two first lines, the top two lines will offset each other, and that leaves an open spot for the third line, who really doesn't have anybody responsibly defensively checking those players. So it's interesting, it's a theory that I've always had, just watch at the third line, if they can break out, man, you can have yourself a heck of a season. But it does require goal scoring. You cannot get set in the mindset of just being a completely defensive forward. That's okay in some games where you know you're going to play a tight team late in the year and you're really going to have to clamp down. But you can never just say, I'm going to be a defensive player like a defensive defenseman. You have to find a way to generate some offense without giving away a lot on the back end as well.
Yeah, and I think, you look at a game like tonight, we're playing Buffalo, who's got a lot of really skilled offensive players. Maybe you focus a little bit more on the defensive side of your game in this specific outing, right? And maybe not so much against a team that maybe it doesn't have as good of an offense. Maybe in those games you say, okay, well, here's a game where I can push it a little bit. I can try and put something up offensively a little bit more. I think that it's finding that right balance sometimes. And I think that Cates was able to do that a lot of times last year. But like I said, he was thrust into a role where he was playing on a top line a season ago and did it, held his own and proved that he's an NHL player. I think now he's in a more comfortable spot for himself in what he's ultimately going to be at this level.
Yeah, and they think they have a couple of guys that can put the puck in the net for him too, right? So Brink, you know what? You were talking about Brink, Russ.
Yeah.
I think he's been okay. Just okay. The games he was scoring, I think that you get a little taste of the guy, what he's like when you score goals and when you don't.
Yeah.
And then that becomes, how well you are playing without the puck. I think he's been okay, but I think he's a guy that needs to score to really feel good about his game.
It could also just be a typical case of a young guy, where we usually say a young guy early in the season might take a few games to get his feet under him. Brink was maybe the inverse, where he had his feet under him right away. Could it be a situation where he's playing so many games so close together, he's playing at this speed, he's playing at this level really consistently for the first time in his career? And you don't want to say that it's a conditioning thing, he's young, but maybe it's just part of the early season process for him. Ant?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's fair. I think that's they've been saying all along there's going to be growing pains with this team. There's going to be fits and starts, and you're going to see times when guys look really good and you get excited about it, like, yeah, that's awesome. Let's see that guy all the time. And then you're going to see them hit stretches where it's like, oh my God, where have they been? They're invisible. Oh, they're playing terrible. That when you have a team that's developing and young and is in part of the rebuild, you're going to run into that. It's just the nature of the sport. And so you have to be willing to take the good with the bad. And I think that, when you look at a guy like Bobby Brink, that's going to be what you're going to get out of him at times. There's things out there to really like about him. I think he's got really good – he sees the ice really well. He's got really good vision, good instincts. But he's still got to learn when the right time is to make a certain play and when the wrong time is to make that play. And I think that I'll give you a perfect example. And this isn't Bobby Brink. This is Owen Tippett. But it's a very similar situation, right? We're sitting here watching the second period, and Owen Tippett makes has a really nice shift going. Comes down the wall, with the puck. He loses it, fights for it back. Really does some good work to win a 50-50 battle. Almost makes a play in front. You're like, wow, that's a great play by Tippett.
Yeah.
Literally, Bundy, what was it? 6 seconds later, he throws a blind backhand pass into the high slot, and Buffalo has an easy breakout and comes down and sets up offensive in the other end.
Almost scored.
And almost scores. That's a mistake he can't make. Yeah. But it's the same shift that he just did 3 great things, and then he makes the silly turnover, and you say that's a player who is still developing and learning when the right time is to make that play.
Yeah, you don't see guys on teams that have gone deep in playoffs make backhand passes in your zone at the high blue line when he had no idea who was there. No clue. And as it turned out, all it did was put Buffalo on a breakout, and they came out of the zone pretty quick. Yeah, those are plays, too, that, believe me, he'll get told about that. Sure. Like, there'll be a video review and just say, you can't make a play like this. And but you're right. I mean, he has his moments. I know what Anthony's saying. There's a lot of guys that have shown signs, but they're just the consistency's not there yet because they're waiting on skill, they're waiting for new guys to come in, and again, that's part of the rebuild. There's guys here that won't be here in 3 or 4 years. That's the nature of this business. But it's a matter of finding out who's going to make good plays, who's going to be part of that fray to move into the future with you.
And I get conceptually why a coach would get upset with that play, and I guess I get why some fans who are like living and dying with every game would get upset with that. And then I look at it and I say, all right, again, it's a rebuild. It's a player that you think is going to be part of it. I don't mind him making those mistakes. Like, no, you don't want to send the other team the other way for a high-danger opportunity, right? However, he's still finding himself. you can live with those because these games really don't matter. In the grand scheme of things, in a rebuilding season, it doesn't matter. You know, it's okay to make those mistakes. Now, 2 years from now, if Owen Tippett's still making those mistakes, then we have an actual problem. Then there's an actual concern. I do want to get to something that we haven't had this reference, I think, in 2 games now. But feeble-minded Brudder brought up TNT just referenced river hockey. And as we know, river hockey is like lake hockey, except more narrow.
On a river.
Yeah.
Hey,
The river water moves, the lake doesn't.
That's right. Yeah.
Guys,
Be careful.
there was something I wanted to talk about tonight. I mentioned it to Russ pregame. And I think I wanted to wait for Bundy to be on because I think it's really important to talk about what's going on. And this has nothing to do with the game tonight, so this is an NHL issue.
Oh.
But I wanted to bring it up. And, story broke today. Well, not story. I mean, the league announced that they are punishing the Ottawa Senators with a first loss of a first-round pick. The Senators get to choose what year, but it's either going to be the 24 draft, 25 draft, or 26 draft. That has to do with the an issue that took place at the trade deadline in 2021, where they traded Dadonov to Vegas. Didn't tell Vegas that he had a 10-team no trade clause in his contract. So then when Vegas tried to trade him to Anaheim, that team was on the no trade, and Vegas got stuck with him and looked pretty bad in the situation. But it was actually Ottawa's fault. It took the league 2 years to make this decision. Okay, several problems here. Several problems. The first being that they waited so long to do it. Okay, and that they waited till there was a new owner that comes in, and the new owner was not told that this investigation was undergoing, nor was he told about the Shane Pinto investigation for gambling, and now all of a sudden comes in and inherits this mess.
Yep.
Like, that should have been disclosed to him as part of the sale of the team.
Imagine losing the value of a first-round pick.
Yeah.
Of what that player could be to your franchise.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. How does the league?
Well, I know what the team did.
Yeah. How does?
We can make it worse though because
I'm getting there.
Okay.
How does the league punish a team for not disclosing information and then doesn't itself disclose the information to the owner?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, it's hypocritical, completely hypocritical.
And they also, I don't want to take it to the other place. There were multiple groups looking at buying this team, right? There was the one that I think Magic Johnson was part of. There was the one that Snoop Dogg was part of. So multiple entities, multiple groups, high money groups were looking at spending near or over $1 billion.
It was $1 billion, which it's got to be the lowest in all of sports, I guess.
The rumor had been that this wasn't the highest offer, that there might have been another offer that was actually for more money. But you figure you had multiple groups offering at, near, or just over $1 billion. And presumably, none of them were made aware of this. Not just the group that ended up buying it. It's insane. I will take this one step further now.
Go ahead. I was going to do this, but go ahead. I know where you're going to go with it.
Ottawa fails to disclose a no-movement list. They are docked a first-round draft pick.
Yeah.
Chicago systemically covers up sexual abuse, and they're fined $2 million. Ooh. $2 million to an ownership group that owns a team that's worth well over $1 billion, maybe multiple billion. I don't know what the Forbes list had them at. $2 million. No hockey consequences.
Any big American city, Russ, like that is going to be worth a lot.
No hockey consequences. No docking of draft picks. Nada. Nil. Zilch. It's to say it's hypocritical, to say that it's just like a sham, to say that it's embarrassing, doesn't even go far enough. But that's just the hypocrisy that exists in how they hand out. Like, I'm sure that the league would probably say, well, $2 million is a real consequence. Nonsense. But for all this to happen, and to Ant's point, for them not to disclose it to the group that was buying the team, and that it took 2 years for them to come to this conclusion is insane.
So this is the best thing, and this is from Frank Saravalli's Twitter account today. What ends up happening is they end up firing the general manager, Pierre Dorian, who was responsible for that, and he immediately gets fired. And the owner, Michael Andlauer, comes out and he says that the league didn't advise him of either investigation, which we're talking about the Dadonov no trade clause, or the sports betting incident with Shane Pinto. And here's his exact quote: "Maybe they didn't want to disrupt the sale to make sure the seller got the best price possible." If that's not a cronyism move by the league, I don't know what is, and it really shows how poorly run this league is at times.
Could you imagine what the new owner's thinking of this now?
He's livid.
Yeah, I mean,
he's livid.
He would come in and go, "I paid $1 billion to come into this league," and that's all he's thinking right now because he's never seen anything else.
Right.
Insane. Now, by the way, the next time there's an expansion team, which will happen, this league is pretty committed, it seems, to 2 more teams potentially in the next few years.
Oh, Atlanta for the 3rd time.
We love Atlanta.
That's just embarrassing.
Let's do it again.
It's ridiculous.
They're gonna potentially have 2 expansion teams come into this league. It stands to reason that at some point another team will come up for sale. Can you imagine now, after seeing this, and it's not going to get a ton of publicity because we know where hockey stands on, in terms of the American sports audience. It's not going to be some massive scandal. It's not going to take over the A block segment of Get Up and First Take tomorrow. But it's a sham. If this happened in the NBA, there would be heads. There'd be calls for Adam Silver's head. If this happened in the NFL, people would be asking all about Roger Goodell. But because it's happening in the NHL, like it never happened. To me, it's crazy. Absolutely crazy. Let's get to some of the questions, comments, and concerns, because there have been a lot of them coming in, and of course we appreciate that. Don't forget, if you're on YouTube, if you're on Facebook, you can comment. We'll pull it up on the screen. Post-game with Bundy and I, we really like to go out to the people for their thoughts on the game. If you're on Twitter, we love and appreciate you, but we can't pull your tweets up on the screen, so head over to YouTube. There was a where's it at? We have a bunch of people going after Bettman. Let's see. Here we go. FedEx Pope. Ottawa lost draft picks is nuts. It's to placate the NHL's new darling, Vegas. Also believed to enhance ownership to interested parties in NHL's absurd plan to expand beyond 32.
I mean, and that's something else, and it's a good point that FedEx Pope brings up there, to expand beyond 32 teams. Like we were also talking about this too, Bundy, and obviously if you add 2 more teams, right?
Yeah.
We were sitting here saying, you said to me at one point in that second period, you said, boy, this is a really sloppy game by 2 teams, and I said by both teams, and I said to you, you can almost say that about any game anymore in the NHL.
Yeah, can add 46 more minor leaguers to the NHL.
And now
that's what happens.
And now we're going to add even more minor leaguers to the league.
Yep.
It's only going to water the game down even more. Like, I don't understand this league.
Money.
Yeah, but it's not even that. You keep saying it. Of course. But then you have a situation where you're letting a team wallow out in the desert playing in a freaking college arena.
They don't care.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, where's the money coming in from there?
When they go to
There's
sell,
no money coming there.
When that team gets sold,
Puck drop.
It's gonna. Oh yeah. All right, we'll be back
We'll
for
continue.
post-game. Bundy and Ant will be down in the locker room. He'll either get an exclusive player interview or he'll get the Torts presser. Make sure you swing back. And Bundy's already out of here, so it's time for us to go. We will talk to you post-game. Enjoy the 3rd period out there, everybody. only one person on the Snow the Goalie team picked the Sabres to win tonight. It was not me. It was not Anthony SanFilippo, who, along with intern Andrew, is now in the bowels of the Wells Fargo Center waiting for access to the locker room, access to the Torts presser, which we will be carrying very, very much live here on the Press Row Show. The man who got the prediction right tonight, missed it by 1 goal, could have taken the lead in our unofficial Snow the Goalie predictions standings. Chris Therien, Bundy.
Got burned by the one empty netter, eh, Russ?
The empty netter had to cost you. It's a shame. We, of course, in the post game, we like to go to the people. We like to go to your thoughts out there. If you're on YouTube, if you're on Facebook, we can pull your comments up on the screen. If you're on Twitter, we love and appreciate you, but we can't pull your tweets up. So head over to youtube.com/@snowthegoalie. Somebody's just vaping up here. You smell that?
I don't know.
Security's going to find that guy.
Yeah, well, they're going to kick him out, and it's a good time to do it.
It sure is. Some could argue it would have been good if we had kicked out a few of the guys on the ice today. All right. We want to know from the people out there if you consider, oh, that's dirty. Although I kind of like the old jersey. I kind of like it. So the question.
How many Stanley Cups do Buffalo have?
Let's not even. Do you want to get into that?
I don't. See you guys. Thank you.
Yeah. The question out there.
I don't want to get. How many Super Bowls do they have?
Who?
Buffalo.
I don't. The way that they talk about Josh Allen and those Bills, you'd think they have 3.
This will be a good chance for him, I guess.
So we want to know from the people out there tonight, do you consider tonight to be a disappointment? I think when you lose a game like they lost against Carolina, you say, hey, that's a better team. That's a more skilled team. That's a better team top to bottom. This Buffalo team, I know that their record wasn't great, but there were a lot of people, and you kind of mentioned before, they have the ability to put the puck in the net. I view tonight as a disappointment. I think it's a disappointment across the board. I don't think that the effort was there in the way that it needs to be. The urgency certainly was not there. How much of that do you put on losing Carter Hart after the first period? I mean, could it really have been that thwarted any efforts of actually putting something together, or do you think it's more than that?
I thought the game today, Russ, had too many ups and downs. Again, there was no level of consistency, like in terms of the way the game it was played by either side. I mean, as Anthony said in the second, it was kind of sloppy a little bit at times. Teams were clammed up in the neutral zone, and that's not really like an exciting thing. You want to have puck possession in the offensive zone for either team. But this is, again, where the Flyers, to me, and I said this last week, we talked about it, it's for them to win, it can't be easy. It'll never be easy. They don't have finishers, repeated finishers. I saw some guy talking before about the they needed Gauthier and
there you go
again, but that's great. They're not here, so you have to deal with what you have, and that's the bottom line. Yeah, Gauthier and Mishkov, they'll be here, but they won't be here this year.
Yeah. Out hit. Here you go, Bob Wright. Out hit, outshot, less giveaways, more takeaways, 1 more faceoffs, and lost.
Yeah.
So, It is interesting when let me see. The stats are now off because they're on the intern Andrew computer. It's not even in the right place to do the StatCast. But you look at this team tonight, and there were points where you say, man, the inability to finish at the net.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not going to say that the Flyers could have gone to OT 5-5, but I mean there were chances there for this to be a 5-3, 5-4 game at the very least.
They had I thought the Flyers played a decent third period.
Yeah.
They really pushed, but the problem is that they got a guy caught up ice. Buffalo came back down on a full ice 3-on-2 with a forward back in the form of Cam Atkinson. Yeah. That's where guys will lick their chops when they see a forward back there. It doesn't matter who they are because they're not used to playing a rush. Yeah. They're having a rush come at them. So, again, it started with Carter Hart. It was one of those kind of weird games. The goalie gets hurt. Clearly, they said mid area. We'll go with that. And then Ursun came in. I mean, he wasn't bad, but you got to have one of those stops late. Like you just got to find a way to get the stop. And I thought like this is the one you're going to pull up. But they were talking about the lack of playmakers. There was chances to score tonight. They did in the third by guys that were goal scorers. Atkinson had a couple. TK had one. The guys that didn't finish tonight were the Noah Cates Tyson Forsters, right? They're the guys everybody's kind of hoping for or waiting on them, but they've yet to really produce. Same with Bobby Brink again tonight. Farabee got one. It was not a good goal, but still he ended up getting off
the result.
Yeah, got the result you
Yep.
want. No one's gonna. They don't ask how.
Yep.
They ask how many, and there's our Buffalo fan again. I don't know what he's celebrating. He's really celebrating this win tonight.
He was really excited.
I mean,
about
where do
it.
you look back? And I'm not going there. I love Buffalo people; they are great. But they are a ragged on town for their sports. And that
Not
guy,
a great town.
huh?
Yeah? Like there's no pro athlete that I can ever remember said, "Boy, I'll tell you what."
No, there is. That's the
We-
scary thing. The guys
we
that
love Buffalo.
me and Keith Primo used to joke about because I go into Buffalo and I'd be like, "Oh my God, like this isn't hell, but you can see it from here." So we go in and Primo goes, "You know what's funny? Like his brother played there, and he goes, he loved it.
Yeah.
Like the outskirts of Buffalo, I guess, are beautiful, and they have the falls and all that. But yeah. Anyway, where were we?
I will tell people that intern Andrew is already set up at the Torts presser. He is ready to go down there. Torts is not out yet. They're going to go to the players in the locker room first. But intern Andrew, man, he's down there with the tripod that I brought down. He's good to go.
He's solid, that dude.
Anthony, just wait for Anthony to start asking his questions. You know, I don't know if you've ever been down there when he does the question thing, but he puts one hand on the thigh, and then he kind of does this thing where he reaches with the phone, and sometimes he kind of leans. The reason that he doesn't like to sit in the front row is because he likes to lean over that front row on the back of the chair, kind of look into the eyes of Torts and ask him a question. You know, real hard hitting stuff.
Here's
Hashtag
one that
journalism.
just jumps right out at you, right? The 1-4-1, good start, effort, and you know what? We said there's a formula that the way this team has to play.
Yep.
And it is so hard to play like that every single night. Problem is now, though, is that this is the area, and this is a time of year where we've seen skids before. Yep. I don't believe they have that team here like that was in the past. I think they're far better than that. But again, this is a time where you can really slip in the standings.
Yep.
And if people really do use the American Thanksgiving as a marking point of where you are, then they need to get going again.
Yep.
And they have a very, very difficult schedule coming towards them. They got to go back to play these guys on Friday, Buffalo, come back, play the LA Kings on Saturday night, and then away they go out to the West Coast again.
Which is going to be brutal.
It's brutal, yeah.
I
Just
did
a couple
see,
weeks removed from the Vegas and Dallas.
There are a few people who brought up a very real concern. I mean, this team, many years, I mean, was it 3 in a row? Has gone on at least one 10-game losing streak.
I know at least 2.
I mean, death taxes and a 10-game losing streak, right?
Yep.
And you could say new era of orange all you want. You can talk about the rebuild. You can, but the fact remains, you can't go on those extended losing streaks. I don't care if you're trying to rebuild or not. You have to be able to figure out a way to stop the bleeding. And if you don't do that, there are questions that are going to have to be asked. Now, we're not trying to raise the alarms here. We're not trying to tell everybody that the sky is falling, because that's not what's happening right now. What you're seeing is, in a lot of ways, a lot of youth, a lot of inexperience. And quite frankly, you had a goalie in there tonight who did not expect to be in that game. Not trying to make excuses, but there were a few things at play here. You certainly need to play better on the road in Buffalo. You can go back, you can get this one back, but boy, oh boy, if you don't, and you have that West Coast swing coming up, things could get ugly very quickly here. And don't forget, we'll be here to cover it all on the Press Row Show. We'll also be, when they go out on the road, which they will soon, we'll be doing the morning after show, where we do a recap of the previous night's game. We do that nice and bright and early in the mongrel hours, as Bundy calls it, over on the YouTube channel, youtube.com.
Mongrel hours are like, you guys were doing shows at 6 a.m. It's like,
when did we do a show at 6 a.m.?
In the summer. I'm like, what are you guys doing?
At 6 a.m.?
It was like 6:30. Oh, we have
sure.
to. I'm like, there's no way I'm doing it at 6:30 in the morning.
All right,
Except maybe getting up and going to the bathroom.
Yeah, that's right. Got to get up. You get a little bit older, you got to get a little morning, morning tinkle.
8:30's fine, Russ.
Okay.
Those are not mongrel hours. I'm up and about by then, and,
Right.
and we're not going to do the 6:30 with you and Anthony. So
right.
you're getting up with everybody.
I want to get to this, though. The power play has been a concern. It's been a concern this whole season, and it ain't getting better. There right now, I don't think, are any signs of things getting better on the power play. They are still continuously, consistently passing, looking for the perfect shot. They are just unwilling or unable to put the puck on net and try to force a dirty goal. They just aren't doing it.
And they got guys that aren't power play quarterbacks playing in power play quarterback type of minutes. So, and that's not their fault.
Yep.
I mean, that's not Travis Sanheim's fault. The guy that I'd like to see, and I got a question here. Francis is, I was just looking at the quote here, is talking about thoughts on Cam York.
I like the emoji use in there, too.
Yeah, what is that?
That's
Anyways,
a little thought bubble. A little thought bubble.
Oh, okay.
I like that. Well done, Francis. Well,
So he's a kid with talent. He can skate. He's got good puck skills. That's gonna be good for a while.
Yeah.
That's not gonna carry a year after year into the league. So I think one thing with him is got to find a groove. I always tell young defensemen like that, and it was totally different body frame than mine. Go watch Duncan Keith, how he competed defensively over the years. He was a smaller stature defenseman, but he as good as he was offensively on the power play. He didn't give much away in the D zone. He wasn't a big guy. It was a lot harder for him. It was more difficult to play those bigger type minutes, but he did it. So I always say, if you're, he was a first round pick, York. That doesn't mean anything, in terms of coming out, because Duncan Keith was a second round pick, and he ended up being the top 100 players of all time.
Yep.
Some people argued that I didn't. I thought he was a really great player and a key cog to Chicago's success. But that's the guy to look at. I'm York. He doesn't know who he is.
No.
At all right now. He doesn't. He's going into plays in the D zone where there's no coverage available. He gets beat a little bit on the wall, and you can't get beat a little bit. You have to be there all the time. If you're going to go in a 50-50 battle with a guy, you have to know that guy is also going to be trying to win the puck battle in the corner. Offensively, he got caught up the ice today. Yes. He got caught up on the most important play of the game, and it was 2-2, and they made it 3-2.
Yep.
There's just not enough rope for a guy like that as a young player. And listen, and kudos and fairness to him too, Russ. I mean, the guy's playing minutes. He's playing in minutes that he shouldn't be playing for that age and for his development. Now, will it help down the road? It might. There's been many guys over the years, defensemen, where it soured them.
Yeah.
And it took them right out. There's lots of first-round defensemen that weren't big size stature guys that just couldn't find their groove, because they probably were playing too much early in their career against teams that they shouldn't have been playing against top lines.
Yeah, I mean, if we're being honest here, you go back to the opening night lineup, or what was projected to be the opening night lineup. It had Rasmus Ristolainen in, playing top pair. It had Mark Stahl playing third pair. And when you look at what Cam York probably needs, I would argue now, he needs a veteran player next to him that's not a veteran trying to have a bounce-back season, which is what he's getting with Travis Sanheim. I don't think that at this point it's advantageous for those two to continue to play together, because I think it's not that they're making each other worse. I just don't think that they're elevating each other the way that you would especially need a Sanheim to elevate a York. I do wonder if at some point we're either going to see them jostle up those defensive pairings, or is this a situation, and it probably is a fair question to ask, could we be looking at a situation where you maybe have Cam York up here for a game, watch from up here, and you put in insert name of prospect here on one of those rotating guys that they're just going to keep shuttling back and forth.
As long as it's done productively.
Yeah.
There's no points. I mean, you could sit a guy out one game because you're ticked off at the way he's played or he's been non-competitive. I always say with a guy like that, just make sure, in terms of it. Now, is the easy thing, I'm looking at CMZ here, in terms of York needs to sit in the box for a few. Okay, what's that going to do? It's going to say, it's going to maybe confuse him more. Yeah. It's going to go up and watch the game. The coaches are going to say, you go up there and watch the game. And that's what they do. They always tell you, go to the press box, watch the game, try to pick something out of the game that maybe could help you. As long as it's done with a reason and a point to it, rather than just sitting him out because he hasn't played well, I would personally do a lot more work with him in terms of video. There's a lot of video stuff to show a guy like that. Like, I could pull 15 clips out of this game tonight and sit him down tomorrow and go, what were you thinking? And here's maybe what it would look like if you're trying to do it right. Now, we have the advantage of watching hockey from the balcony. Yes. And I always said that's Mario Lemieux had balcony eyes. Mm-hmm. He played the game like he was on the balcony, and that's why, he was one of the 2-3 greatest players that ever played the game.
Speaking of watching the game at the balcony, we had a bunch of people come up here during the game today.
Yep.
Shake hands, it was great. The Snow the Goalie listeners, I continue to be impressed with the fact that there are so many people who come out to a game and take the time to come up here, shake hands, watch the game with us for a bit. I know that you had a story that you wanted to get to, and I think that now's a really good time for it before we get down to the Torts presser. and we'll get back to the hockey talk. So by all means, keep dropping your questions, comments, and concerns.
I'll make it quick
on YouTube.
in case we get Torts coming up. But
yeah.
my daughter, Isabel, my oldest daughter, lives in Indianapolis. For 3 years, she's dated and lived with an offensive lineman for the Colts, Will Fries. Penn State kid, Jersey kid, great guy. They've been together. And she has started her own home remodeling and refurbishing bathrooms and stuff and all that kind of good stuff. But they were doing a little article on Will, and Will said, my girlfriend's really done this too, started her own company here. And anyway, he got her name, and they wrote an article, and he says, there's a guy that played in Philadelphia. He has the same last name as you. And she's like, oh, really? She's going to be 25 in 3 weeks, right? So really? He says, yeah, he's a player, but, man, you should see this podcast, Snow the Goalie. So he went in, and she just was playing along with him. And I guess she called me today. She goes, Dad, you guys are more popular for your podcast than you were as a player. Finally, he told the guy, she goes, yes, he's my dad. And the guy just couldn't believe it.
That's wild.
And it wasn't for the former player; it was because of Snow the Goalie. So that's pretty cool.
That's insane.
Yeah, great kid, and I love that. It was a pretty fun story. So we do have a listener in Indianapolis. Hopefully more.
Yeah.
And I will get the gentleman's name. We'll share it next time. But that was pretty cool.
I think a big reason that we're seeing that kind of growth, by the way, is because people are starting to find this show. They're starting to get into the flow of things: pregame, intermissions, postgame, and of course, like we mentioned before, we went from saying, hey, we're going to do a show once a week remotely to partnering with the Flyers and saying, hey, like, we need better equipment. Let's do this thing the right way from press row, from up here for home games. And then we just kind of willy-nilly decided, all right, we're also going to do a post-game, the morning after show, where we, from the comfort of our homes, thankfully at those hours, we break down the game. As we know, the Bundy bomb has become very popular. Merchandise coming soon to the Snow the Goalie store. We can't Bundy bomb here on this show.
We cannot on anything in the building.
But
correct.
the morning show, the morning after show,
I
where we
won't
do the
let
road
you
games,
down.
He won't let you down. Snow the Goalie, the only Flyers podcast. He won't let you down. Here, no Bundy bombs tonight.
If I could, there'd be a couple tonight.
Oh man, I've caught myself with the words ready to just
spitting out. It just
ready to flow. I feel like my old teacher days of like, you can't tell somebody what you really think of that question that has been answered 10 times.
We'll say this though,
Yeah.
we'd like, before anything comes up, we'd like to thank the Flyers. They've done a great job providing us with intern, the camera, and everything, and giving us
it's our
this
intern.
Great,
That's our intern.
Oh, it's our intern.
Yeah,
Okay.
Anthony found him.
Oh, did he?
Yeah, found him.
How about that?
He did. Intern
But-
Andrew is an Anthony find.
We love it. We love having fan interaction. We certainly love the questions. It's just the best because we want this to be a show for you, and we'll try to honestly answer the best we can. Whether you like the answer, I can't do anything about that. We can only give you one.
That's
Love the
exactly
Ottawa
right.
stuff earlier too. That was like, and that's the other thing that we want to tell people. We'd like to start going around the league a little bit more. I know we're a designated Flyer podcast, but we do want to talk about league stuff, other teams, incidents, mess ups, like that thing in Ottawa today. That's an incredible story.
I will tell people that we're working on a few other things that we want to kind of roll out as part of a bigger thing, and so when that day comes, because it's gonna require a lot more time on our end, but we have more that we want to do. We've enjoyed kind of stepping this thing up. Jesus,
I like laughing too, like I do. I enjoy a good show where the fans make me actually.
Can you read that one for the people who go back and listen to the podcast feed?
Flyers should trade for Kevin Hayes.
Says J Money.
Let me get it off. All right.
It's like saying a prayer over here.
Torts is taking a little bit longer today with getting to that presser.
It certainly seems like it. Although now I'm seeing the media funneling in there. Boy, oh boy.
Yeah, this is now the part like where we're gonna find out like really quickly what where they're at, right? Because there's always different buttons coaches want to push, and we've seen multiple buttons pushed by Torts. Well, you a little less, Russ, but me for 20-some years, I've seen many teams and the way he's tried to get them going. So it'll be interesting to see how he handles this. Someone said 1-4-1 in their last 6. They're trending downwards. They got to go play these guys in their building. I always said it's a good thing to win the first game in a home and home, especially when you got the advantage of being home, because then it's house money on the road. But the Flyers are going to have to dig in here on Friday night because it doesn't get any easier. And as I said, the schedule's not going to favor them. Somebody said San Jose's licking their chops like for a team. San Jose's the worst team. I watch them. I actually watched some of them the other night. They're maybe the worst team I've seen in hockey in like a long
Almost
time.
got a Bundy bomb.
Yeah, no, it's not happening.
Yeah. Jay Money, by the way, also checked in and said, "How about Tony D'Angelo? Boy, this team needs help on the blue line. It would be nice to have a good puck moving defenseman who can also quarterback a power play unit, huh?" Well, Tony, no.
Apparently Jay Money's a good follow on Twitter.
I love that.
Always looking for a good laugh.
I love that. I'm also giving intern Andrew a little bit of a hard time because for some reason he decided to set up in the back, and I mean the back of the press room. He's gonna have to fix that one. All right. Let's get to one of the guys that I think we've been looking for more from, and unfortunately for the Flyers, hasn't provided it. We talked about Cam York, but the guy that he's paired with, Travis Sanheim,
2 assists tonight, up and down.
Yeah,
that's the problem is he's a skilled guy. Like, he can skate, he can make plays. It's just a matter of where his head is some nights, And again, it's so hard to play those type of minutes against other teams' top lines. And there's been a 4-game homestand, right? So what happens is with a homestand is that you can't get away from it. You're going out against the top lines because you got the last change. So from that standpoint, it becomes harder and harder. He just needs to find, and I think he can, that level of consistency. Points shouldn't matter to him. Like I'm saying, don't even think about points. If they come, great. He's in more opportunities than most other guys that play. There's a lot of guys that play top minutes that are not power play defensemen. Focus on what you're really good at. But I think for the most part, it's hard. It's been hard for him also playing with York. I want to blame it one way or another. It's tough when you play a young guy with a guy who's not really seasoned in that spot anyway.
Yep.
So that's what they're dealing with, and they're trying to patchwork their way through it right now.
which you can't do. I mean,
It's what they have, Russ.
Their hand is kind of forced. I do wonder who's Risto going to be paired with when he comes back. I mean, we presume he will be back. We have not received any kind of an injury
Probably
update.
Sanheim,
Yeah, which then moves York to
where he should be on the second pair with. Let's see who. If you put, they'll put those two guys together as a top pair, I would think.
Yeah,
And then
it's not
maybe Walker. I don't know. I mean, again, it's just
okay. So Walker maybe makes sense, right? Because Walker has been a very steady presence, and maybe that could be good for York's
Walker.
development.
Yeah, newbie 82 is
Maybe.
thinking like that. I just if you ask me who the most solid defenseman been all year, it's been Walker.
Yeah.
Just from a consistency standpoint, we never talk about him. And when you don't talk about a D-man, that's good.
The peaks and valleys.
Yeah.
It's weird because with Sanheim, it's erratic. I mean,
It can be. There's nights he's brilliant.
Yes.
But then there's nights like the 2 games before tonight where I was like, I don't even know what he was doing.
But then there are nights where he legitimately is both.
Yes. And tonight was that night.
Period to period, where you're just like, I don't know what we're getting.
Tonight was that night. Yeah.
And that again is one of those things that frustrates you because of injury, he's being forced into that number 1 defenseman role. And that's not what he needs to be right now. That even in a rebuild, that's not what he should be doing, but it's the role that he's kind of been forced into. You have to hope that things are going to kind of level off. If you can get to a point where, to your point, he's not producing points, but he's just at least a steady defenseman, you take that.
But what I'm saying is, Russ, he'll get points.
Yeah.
He doesn't need to force it. He's not going to get 60 points. But if he plays good D, stays focused on just making a good outlet pass in his zone, battling his rear end off in the corners, and getting the puck out, following up with good legs, keeping pucks in when you have to, and then you know what? Rinse, wash, repeat.
Yes.
When the penalty kill comes, go out, get your rear end in gear, and kill the penalty. If you get power play time, keep it simple. Don't try to do too much. I actually thought he kept it simple tonight on the power play. But that's it. Just when you get good at this game and when you become content in the league, nobody talks to you. It's like going to work every day. You go out, play the game, get up in the morning, go to the rink, practice, go out, go back and do the job, and the coach never talks to you. I had about 5 years of that. It's the best feeling. I believe he can do that. I really do.
You've played for coaches like Torts in the past. If you're a young guy and you're struggling, do you have a built-in fear of going into work every day because you're worried about being targeted by the coach, that you're not like a disciplinary targeting, but that you almost feel embarrassed that things aren't going well and you don't want to be a focus of a film session, you don't want to be a focus of the coach in practice? Is there anything to that as a younger guy?
Well, I remember Ken Hitchcock when he was here. Half the team would park their cars on the other side of the building and come in the Phantom side, so they wouldn't have to deal with him. That's a true story. He's going to the Hall of Fame next month. Wonderful human being. That's what guys did. He was wonderful. But yeah, he's a guy that half the team would park on the far side so they would avoid him, and he was here forever. Again, a lovely human being.
Oh, Hitchy. Oh, he got Eshy. Eshy had a good game out there for us tonight, you know. I just remember, I loved how he said Eshy. I thought it was kind of funny because he was a jolly, kind of.
He's jolly.
Jolly looking fella.
Like a jolly guy, yeah.
Yeah. All right, let's get to some questions, comments, and concerns. FedEx Pope 223. Torts tipped off the press to look out for Walker prior to the season. He's right, or he was right. This is a good question by our friend Joe Papel, who bought season tickets because of how excited we got him.
Yeah, Joe's great.
Joe's great. We love Joe. Are shots on goal a good indicator that we outplayed Buffalo for long stretches?
Not really, because you can get caught in a trap where, if you're having quality, I always look at quality of shots, quality of opportunities. But, again, but what are they supposed to do? Like, you're going to shoot the puck. The coach probably said, boys, let's get a ton of shots on goal tonight. You get an opportunity to shoot, don't pass it up. I guarantee you that's what he said. Yeah. So what are they supposed to do? The problem is it's not about the shot. It's about the traffic after the shot. And the shots are fine. I mean, anybody can sit there and shoot shots all day long from the blue line, and the goalie's going to stop them. If there's traffic in front of the net, it makes it a lot harder. That's probably what I'm thinking in terms of where they're at with that. But they shot them. I mean, they really outshot Buffalo, more than 2-1. And, Buffalo still had a lot of the better chances.
Sola63 says something that I firmly believe. Torts probably here until the Flyers are good, a standard thing. Since his hiring, I've just viewed it as he's not going to be the coach when they try to put the gasoline on the fire and accelerate this thing. I think he'll be with the organization. I just 3 years, 5 years from now to still be behind the bench. Like I'm not sure about that. Here we go. Titan checking in from a cold Salisbury, North Carolina. Very interesting. Let's see.
We're waiting for Anthony, but I'll tell you what, Torts has been incredibly long coming out. I mean,
this is a long wait.
Yeah, it's never good when the coach takes forever to come out for the presser.
Yeah. Francis doesn't think that Hitch was very jolly. Here we go. Ed. I don't know. For as lackluster as Frost has been, did see him on the bench talking to Torts and asking questions about plays. Got to believe he's teaching more than berating. I think that what you are seeing in some way is a slightly, do we say, softer John Tortorella? Maybe less of a prickly cactus?
Well, I think he knows what he's got. A lot of young guys that are still trying to grow, and he's trying to fill slots for them. But, he's not going to come out and say, well, we have a Stanley Cup contender and they need to be better.
Yeah.
So there's got to be some measure of patience.
Based on the amount of time it's taking him right now, is this him having a long talk with the locker room? Is this him letting the leaders lead a locker room discussion? Because you can see, like, what we can see here is that all the media is waiting, which means the locker room is now closed off. Nobody's yucking it up or asking stuff for stories. So this really is like Torts. This is like Torts time.
I don't necessarily know that he's talking to the team. He could be talking to management. There's a lot of different things that go on after a game. Very rarely does a coach speak to a team after a game. I don't know what Torts does. Most coaches, even in a bad loss, a team is in a slide, it'll usually come down to the guys. It's about the fourth or fifth game where you start to hear your rumblings like close the door at the end. It's a players-only meeting. Depends what team you have, though. If you have a really veteran team, the coach will stay away from that. But if you have a team where you got a lot of young guys and they're calling meetings, that may not necessarily work for the coach because he wants to make sure the messaging is right. So, again, he's a guy that wants his message out. Yeah. But there always has to be an internal part of it where the team has a pretty big bite of it as well because it's ultimately them making the plays on the ice.
We had a question here about, are the Flyers carrying 3 goalies because of the white elephant in the room concerning Hart? I mean, we've talked about this all offseason. There have been no updates on the Hockey Canada investigation. There have been no indications about him being part of it or not being part of it. It is weird that they were carrying 3. They sent Sandstrom down, I believe, yesterday for a conditioning stint with the Phantoms. It was weird that they started the season with 3. And now if Hart is out for an extended period of time, which we have not had confirmed, he went out with a mid-body injury, which we presume is hip or back.
Yep.
I think we have Torts. Here we go.
Okay.
Going to John Tortorella now.
Found a way to, past couple games, get by that number 2 goal and get the third one or whatever it may be.
How much of
Goalie played really well.
the finishing struggles is just it's a long hockey season, this happens time to time, and how much of it is things you guys need to do to push it through?
You know, I think we created over 20, 25 scoring chances. It's what we need to do is just stay with it. And I think that's the most important thing is to not overthink it, just continue to try to play the right way. And I thought for a good portion of the game, we did. Checked well, jammed the neutral zone, had a ton of chances, but we just did not give the goalie credit. He played a good game.
Was that the other night you weren't going to stand up here all year and do the moral victory thing, but you've got a group of young players in there who might tend to get a little more frustrated than some veterans. How do you kind of keep that perspective in mind for them?
Big part of my job right now. That's a big part of my job is how the mindset of the hockey team is handled. And you don't like losing. You don't like being in the loss column. I've got to handle it the right way with them. We have some things to correct, and we'll do that, but I'm not going to go searching for things wrong with the team when we lose 5-2 or we lose the other night. That'll show their face plenty of times this year when something's really wrong with the team. Sometimes when you think you're doing okay, you just got to stay with it, and that's a big part of my responsibility right now with some of the players. So I think this is frustration already.
John, I know you're still digesting Carter's injury, but if he's out for a while, do you play a different defensive style?
No.
Or more defensive?
Nope.
Is that a pretty tough spot for Samuel Larson? He's had a couple tough starts, and then he has to come in relief.
Part of his job.
You said with Sam, you really like him, you really like his attitude, but with the uncertainty now with Carter, is there concern about Sam's sharpness thus far this year?
Well, he's going to have to get sharp. I'm not sure what Carter's situation. We'll find out more tomorrow. And but I do. Sam has showed us many times that he can bounce back. I've listened to him talk to you guys. I think he self-evaluates very well. That's a really important part of a player, their self-evaluation. And I think he's very strict with that as far as how he feels about himself. I think that'll get him through it.
Were there breakdowns in the third period for you guys in terms of defensive coverage? I know
we give up one with the 2-on-1. The odd man rush. Excuse me. We're a little bit deep, a little bit flat with our forecheck. Yorkie misses the puck along. I don't think Yorkie should pinch there. It's just too late of a pinch on the strong side. And they score. They capitalize. I think after the first period, I think they had 7 or 8 shots throughout the rest of the game. I think 2 or 3 scoring chances, and they scored. There were some breakdowns, but there's going to be breakdowns. As I've said to you guys, we will have some breakdowns in the way we want to play. I like the attitude of how we play. I see a lot of good things in how we're playing. And how we're playing, the aggressive of our play, we're going to have some breakdowns. And I'm not laying on the goalie, but we're going to need some saves along the way there too. That's just the way we're going to go about this year. And I believe we'll get there.
Shifting to the power play, Cam Atkinson kind of expressed some more frustration about, not as many shot attempts on the power play. Is that an element of the game that you feel like needs to be reevaluated with how the power play is set up?
Not so much the setup. I think some decision making for sure. I think the decision making needs to be simplified. Not to go back into the old shoot the puck and look for a rebound, but I think there's some shots to be taken. And like I watched Tip, he's slapping it around, and even Bobby Brink. I think we need to simplify that and just try to generate more to the net. And then I believe things will open up for other plays after that. I just don't think we've generated enough pucks to them.
Thanks, Coach.
Thanks, Coach.
All right, we're back. So, John Tortorella, very interesting comment there regarding the power play. Boy, it sure sounds like what we've been talking about here, pregame, intermissions, and postgame for the vast majority of the season. That it's not that the power play needs to be reconfigured, it's the decision-making and the idea that they really do perhaps need to stop overpassing it, overthinking it, rip some shots, look for a rebound, and get a dirty goal.
Shots are the way that you're going to create the chances. And it doesn't have to be perfect. You just got to get it through. And that's where the guys that are in front, the scorers, need to. That's it. I mean, we said it. I mean, there's no tic-tac-toe with this team will work sometimes, but it's not the way you want to play the game.
Yeah.
And I always say a power play, like, you can do a lot with a power play just by keeping things simple. And I think that's the part that this team needs to figure out, and Torts is probably going to try to help them figure that out.
I don't think there's any point in us sitting here and kind of recycling points that we made during the intermissions. But I think a lot of the analysis that we put out tonight kind of carried through. We have to see how this plays out here the next few days because let me pull up the schedule here. Like we said, we know that they've got a game coming up here.
Well, they got a back-to-back. So they got at Buffalo, home against L.A. So you can worry about those two.
Yep.
They need to go out to Buffalo and play kind of the way they did, but finish when the opportunity is there if you can. Simplify the game. Make it a little bit easier. I like what that's Mike Butts here is a really good point here, and he's a follower. I've seen his name up a lot. I actually know Mike a little bit. Play a little bit selfish. You don't always need to make the extra pass. That's true. Lawton at the end to Hathaway.
Yep.
Shoot the puck.
Yep.
There's no point doing that. You know, like you're giving it to a guy who may not finish. Maybe he does. But if you go in and score, and he's done that before on breakaways, go in there and do that. And I think that's a lot of teams try to pass too much. Yeah. It doesn't suit them. Shoot the puck.
So we have a very interesting schedule thing that we're going to have to decide. We'll put out on social media to update people. Flyers are in Buffalo Friday night, which means that typically we would do a morning after show on Saturday. However, the Flyers also play Saturday night here at the Wells Fargo Center with a 7:30 puck drop. So we're going to have to figure this out. We might do post-game on Friday night. We might do morning after Saturday morning for 15 minutes and then get ourselves jazzed up, and ready for the night game.
It's a 7:30 game Saturday night, too,
Brutal.
by the way. Yeah, I don't know why. 7:30.
Man, I'm sick of 7.
People, I'll finish with this. People have no idea the difference between 7:30 and 7 in hockey. It's incredible. I don't know if it's like that for the fan.
Explain.
It makes the day feel like it's 3 hours longer. Then you have to. We've talked about that for 30 years, guys. See the difference between 7:30. There used to be games that were all 8 o'clock. Hockey Night in Canada for years they were 8 o'clock starts, and then finally someone went back down to 7. And if they can do 6, let's do that.
Yeah, I know. Hey, I think it's time to go, pal.
Let's do it.
I think it's time, pal. So again, we'll be back morning after show.
Yep.
Saturday morning. It'll be early, but we'll put it up. It'll be on YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook. We'll put it up there. We'll put an update on Instagram. So if you follow us over on Instagram at Snow the Goalie, we'll put the link in our Instagram story and on Facebook story. And then we'll come back mere hours later on Saturday night. We'll be here, Wells Fargo Center in the Unnamed Sportsbook. If you come to join us on Saturday night, you go to section 121. You take the elevator. It's a VIP elevator. In section 121, you take it all the way up. You tell them you're going to the sportsbook, and you come and spend some time with us. You watch the game, take a picture with Bundy, me and Ant, whatever. But it's a really nice spot to watch the game. Millions of screens over on this side. The action going on over here. So come out, find us, join us. We've had people out with us every single home game, which is very flattering and really cool, and we appreciate it. And in the meantime, subscribe on YouTube. If you're watching on YouTube right now and you haven't hit that like button yet, please do that. Consider subscribing to the channel. Ring the bell so that you get notified whenever we go live. And you can find the podcast wherever you get your podcasts. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, Google Podcasts, Pandora. We take the post-game show on the Press Row Show. We throw that into the podcast feed. So if you can't pull up YouTube one day, you can certainly find the show there. And we also do that with the morning after and with the regular Snow the Goalie show. So for Bundy, find him on Twitter at Therien6. For Anthony SanFilippo, who just came over here with a big smile on his face, at AntSanPhilly. I'm Russ at Joy on Broad. Thanks for watching, or maybe even listening, to Snow the Goalie, the Press Row Show, the #1 rated pregame, intermission, and postgame show. So they say. We'll talk to you all
Good night,
very,
everybody.
very soon.